The pendulum problem. How we keep swinging ourselves right off the deep end. Why? Because we are living in a state of extreme overcorrection. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to What a Fuster Cluck. I'm your host, Lolita Keys. And on today's episode, I want to hone in on overcorrection. And not going to lie, full disclosure, I want to start tracking like some show notes and things. So before I'm actually sitting down to record these episodes, I'm making sure that I capture some of the bullets that I want to go through. And at first I thought, I don't want to look like I'm reading. And I was really self-conscious about it. But now I'm like, you know what? Screw it. If Megan Kelly can have notes, so can Lolita. So I'm going to be, looking at some of the notes that I have on my screen here. So if it feels like I'm kind of looking away, that's what's happening. Full transparency. Why is this topic close to my heart? So I am a self-proclaimed former raging liberal feminist turned, I would say, centrist. Although, since having kids, I definitely lean a little bit more to the right, to the conservative side. But also, I'm really intrigued by libertarianism because I just feel like our government has just ridiculously failed us. And I don't think there's any solution in either party, Democrat or Republican, unfortunately. Basically, somewhere between awareness and obsession, empowerment and delusion, we have literally lost our middle ground and maybe our collective sanity right along with it. In this episode, I want to make sure that we're unpacking sort of the cultural pendulums that keep swinging from one extreme right over to another. Whether we're talking about beauty, wellness, politics, parenting, social movements, and even self-care. Because sometimes when we're trying to fix everything, we are literally just creating a new kind of chaos. A few pointers that I want to hit on, which I've already kind of rattled off a few, but let's start with beauty and aging. So from anti-aging everything to I'll never wash my face again to complete filter fatigue. What does overcorrection look like in this space? I would love when I get a little bit more technologically advanced to just insert a picture here of a person who just went incredibly overboard on cosmetic procedures and cosmetic surgery so that I could really sort of say, this is where we are. This is where we're heading. On my last episode, or one of my last episodes, I should say, I talked about how we are really going overboard. We are really becoming excessive and how there's something to be said for moderation, regardless of what we're doing, which completely goes in line with my theme of overcorrection. If you are overcorrecting your face, or even you're that person who's like, I'll never wash my face again, like I'll never shower again. If you're that person, it's like two totally different extremes, right? Where's the middle ground? Where's the people who want to age gracefully, but don't want to literally look like a freak show when they're in their 50s, 60s, and beyond? Feminism and gender roles is the next topic that I want to talk about. Why is this one so important to me? So, as I've already said, former raging liberal feminist turned centrist. I grew up in the state of New Jersey, okay, in a very blue collar, democratic, cultural melting pot concrete jungle. My town was a small town, but the population was significant given the size of the town. And we were not very far outside of New York City, Morristown, New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey, the Rutherfords, North Bergen, like all of these places, right? So not very far from just literally the apple of America in New York City. And I was very much influenced by what I grew up around. And my mother was just a wildly insecure woman, is a wildly insecure woman, and just really doted on my father, even though she was not treated well by him. And I immediately saw that as a young girl and thought, I've got to be able to take care of myself. I don't need a man. I don't want a man. I'm not getting married. Why would I bring kids into this world? Which is interesting because I hear people say that now. I hear people say, how could you possibly bring kids into this world? Or I don't want to bring kids into this world. And I just think, what a loss. What a loss. And I didn't see that then, but I see it now more than ever. Because in my opinion, we need to be having these babies, not just to fund our Social Security, but we need to be having these babies because they are truly our only hope. Our only hope for all this crazy ass overcorrection that we're experiencing in our society is to raise great babies and for them to grow up into adults that realize the disaster that we have created generation over generation because we are constantly trying to overcorrect. And when we get so progressive that we actually are regressing in other areas, I'm hopeful that it's our kids that are going to course correct here because we are like, like just going right off of a cliff, in my humble opinion, with all of the insanity, especially when it comes to feminism and gender roles. I am, full disclosure, maybe you're not going to like this, or maybe you'll hear me out. I am 100% against trans athletes competing in men or women's sports. I am completely anti this. This doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to compete in sports, but go spin up your own league, because I can tell you that women in this country did not fight for so long to be able to have leagues exclusive to them, to be measured against their peers, to have a man, a genetic man, come into the sport and completely dominate and ruin any opportunity for a woman to get that title, to claim that title after she's worked so incredibly hard and you know you have a genetic advantage. I am completely against that. I am also 100% against men in women's locker rooms under any circumstance unless a woman has signed a waiver that says she is okay with that. This is preposterous. It is a complete overcorrection. This is a very small percentage of our population that even want these rights. And when you are to the point where you are bending over backwards to satisfy the needs of a small fringe, you are going too far. You have really overcorrected to the detriment of the rest of your society. And I think it's really curious how so many of my still Democratic liberal friends are so on board with this, but at the same time don't understand that they are completely violating the rights of the women who work so hard to make sure that we have these safe spaces. And not just the gender, let's talk about the gender roles. So when I was growing up, and this probably started sometime in the 60s, all of a sudden it was like, oh, women, you can be doing all the things that men can do, and you don't need to stay home and raise your babies. I talked about this a little bit in my Purpose, Passion, Career episode, but I want to focus on it here too, because there has been an extreme overcorrection here. And I've said it before, I will say it again. We are lifting up our women and our girls to the detriment of our boys. And because of that, we are creating these weak, feeble boys. I don't even want to call them men. And they are living at home in their parents' basement or the bedroom that they grew up in until forever. And they're gaming online incessantly. And they have all these mental health problems. It's like, where is the strong men? Where are the strong male role models? Again, what's up with the overcorrection? Why can we not have an equal emphasis on the strength of our girls as on our boys? Why is it that we had to dumb down masculinity to make way for femininity? Both can exist. Last time I checked, we are all coexisting on this planet together, and women have come a long way, and I completely respect that. This is not me saying we all need to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen like the old adage says, but maybe you want to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. I can tell you right now that in full retrospect, having had kids, I completely regret my decisions, completely regret my decisions to thinking a career would be the thing that fulfills me, or to thinking that a career, putting a career before getting married and having kids was the right path. And I really hope that more people start hearing that message, because we have radicalized feminism and we are completely emasculating our men. And this is going to be a problem, because we're going to have a ton of women out there, and we already do, who feel like they'd be better off alone, which is disgusting, because quite frankly, I don't care if you're the biggest introvert on the planet. We are a tribal species, and we all need a partner. We all need a partner. Maybe that's not a husband. Maybe that's not a wife, girlfriend, or boyfriend. Maybe it's just close family. Maybe it's just close friends. But the reality is the majority of us need a partner in some way, shape, or form. So sitting here, raising up these women to the point where now women have become so ridiculously picky that they can't find a man. And to their credit, you have all these weakling little dudes out there that are like scrawny and like where's the masculine looking dudes? Where's the Jason Momoas at? Remember, look at a picture in the 1940s, like post World War II, where you had all these like James Dean looking dudes. Look at pictures from the beaches in that era where everybody is essentially in great shape. Men look like men, women look like women. And look around now. Like look around now. This is a problem. So in emasculating our men to raise up our women, we've got all these little like quite frankly, just dorky dudes not in touch with their masculinity and nobody to match these strong women that we've created. And so it's like slim pickings out there, lady. It's like do or die. It's survival of the fittest for relationships these days. It used to be sort of the opposite of that when you really think about it. And so, again, raising up our women to be these strong, independent women and not remembering to bring our boys along for this ride so that we have two compatible parallels. We have very much overcorrected here. I used to be the person who said girls rule, boys drool, and girls run the world, and girls have the babies, like channeling my inner Beyonce. And now I'm like, there is no way we do this without one another. So until we start really embracing the strength and the power in both the feminine and the masculine, we are headed down a dark path, my friends, because if we're not having babies anymore, that's a problem for our society. And I think we really need to think about that and what is our message. Another point is parenting. So from children should be seen, not heard, to children run the house. Okay, this is another one. You've got your parents out there that are like, no, they just have to find themselves and they're just like so magical and I don't want to crush their dreams and their imagination. And these kids are just running wild and they have literally no manners. They don't know how to survive in the world. And what are you doing to that kid? Let me tell you what you're doing to that kid. You are raising a kid who one day is going to go out into the workforce and somebody's going to tell them you did a shitty job, or they're going to be fired, or they're going to be expected to have responsibility. And you did not do your due diligence as the parent to train them up on how to function in the world without acting like an entitled asshole. Okay. Now, the children should be seen, not heard. This is from my grandparents' generation, I would say, maybe even a little bit of my parents' generation. And what's wrong with that? Well, now you've got all these like timid children who won't speak up for themselves or won't, go against the grain a little bit, won't challenge the status quo. And so what are you left with then? Then you're left with robots and adults that can't express themselves because they were never given the opportunity to, or they had to keep their mouth shut. So where's the middle ground there? Well, it seems to me the obvious answer is that every child needs the ability to own that magic of being a child while also understanding that structure is important, that discipline matters. Okay. Without that, you will raise a bunch of entitled brats. You can do the case study and maybe you'll find one or two that turn out to be okay, but the vast majority of them will grow up to be entitled a-holes. So let that one sink in a little bit. The wellness culture. So it used to be that we ignored our health completely, and now we obsess over every toxin and trend. Raise his hand. That is me. I can't wait to do my episode on my struggles with anxiety. I think you'll find that both emotional but also hopefully a little insightful and funny. But I have really worked hard to sort of get through my anxiety and my constant catastrophizing. But I was at a point where I literally was obsessing over every toxin, and it just got so bad where I felt like we're all going to die. Which, I mean, eventually we are, but I felt like literally every day I'm killing myself with something that I'm putting in my body. Like I see a scratch on a pan and I'm like, oh my God, I'm leaching PFAS into my body. And I listen to my brother talk all about the contaminants in this soil and in the water. And, we're all walking around with a credit card size piece of plastic essentially roaming around in our bodies and what that's doing to our fertility, which is a whole other subject. And then I realized, okay, you can't avoid it. We're living in a world surrounded by EMF and pollution. But honestly, in this country, we've done a pretty damn good job in comparison to most places in reducing our global footprint as far as when it comes to polluting the atmosphere. We have really come a long way. So when we talk about the wellness culture and obsessing over every toxin and every trend, I've had to find a balance with that. And I think it's important to stick to what many of you know of as the 80-20 rule, where it's like 80% we're going to try to do the best thing, the right thing as often as we can. And then 20% of the time we're going to just live our lives, right? I'm going to have the drink. I'm going to eat the bad food. I'm going to skip a day of exercise. And I'm not going to completely run myself ragged feeling like a complete anxiety-ridden psychopath about that decision. So again, where's the middle ground? Let's find the middle ground. Let's make that trend. Our corporate culture. So it used to be that we hustled hard. We worked an obscene amount of hours a week. And to an extent, I think we still do that. But then we got to this whole quiet quitting trend, right? And this disengagement. And everybody loves to talk about work-life balance, which I think is just a bullshit phrase that companies use to sound enticing to prospective employees, quite honestly, because how many companies out there really are truly with their finger on the pulse of work-life balance? I would be curious to hear your thoughts on that. Email me whatafusterclucklk@gmail.com or hit me up on social media, DM me. I'm really curious to see, do you work for an organization that you feel like really, really goes above and beyond when it comes to work-life balance? Because what does that really mean? Where do the majority of us working folks spend our adult lives? We spend it at work. One day, I remember my son, he had a teacher at his school who I wasn't a big fan. And he came home from school one day and he told me that his teacher said, Mommy, my teacher said that I spend more time with her than I spend with you. And talk about like stake through the heart. I mean, that hit me so hard. And I really had to take a step back before I reacted and put that into perspective. First of all, I thought that was a ridiculous thing for her to say. And I in my mind, just wanted to virtually slap her in the face. But then I thought, shame on her for saying that. Like, why would you even say that to my kid? That's an awful thing to say. And then I thought, let's put this into perspective. She's going to be your teacher for 1 year of your life, which is the equivalent of 180 days minus your sick days. Okay. That is a completely false statement that you will spend more time with her than you will with me in your life. That is completely false. Or even that you'll spend more time with her than with me at all. Again, completely false. But as working people, especially working people with families, what does work-life balance look like? To me, it looks like the type of day where I get to be with my family, my actual family, not the people that I work with. My family is in my home. That's my family. And those are the people who need me more than anything. And it's interesting how we're all very afraid of AI. And maybe we should be, maybe we shouldn't be. Time is going to tell, and it's going to tell really soon because it's coming like a tidal wave. But year after year, we get more and more technologically advanced, but the work never stops. It's been my experience year over year that even when we implement a new technology and we think, ooh, look at this like takes out the human and we can get this done so much faster, it is fast and furiously replaced by something else for you to do at work. I literally have never seen a piece of technology come in any of my professional career where it didn't free up time and that time quickly got filled by some other thing that needed to be done. And I see that very much even in today's day and age in my current job right now. I'm not at a loss for work in my job. So what does work-life balance really look like? To me, in a perfect world, It's just focusing on the work that matters. It's just focusing on the work that adds value. And it's not being bound and chained to the 8 to 5 mindset. It's like, do we really need a 40-hour work week when we have all of this amazing technology? And maybe that means a pay cut. And maybe some people are uncomfortable with that. But it should be your decision. And if you really are looking for work life balance, I do wish that more companies offered something that was exclusive to parents. And maybe I need to think outside of the box on that because I'm sure there's other people who would fit this description. But maybe you want to work, you want to do this thing, you want to have your job, but you really want to be home more with your family. I wish more companies would offer robust, meaningful work, but in a part time fashion because I don't want to work at my kid's school so that I can have my kids' hours because I don't know what I would do at my kid's school that would really fulfill me. I want to like keep doing what I'm doing and have the job that I have, but I don't want to work 50 hours a week, quite frankly, because that doesn't feel like work-life balance to me. Even 40 hours a week, it just doesn't feel like work-life balance to me because the reality is I am out of my home. I am at work more than I'm with my family, but again, overcorrection, right? This uber feminist society, women get into the workplace and also not even just like being in the workplace, but also you can be a career mom, you can be a corporate mom, and just making it seem like these two things can go together. Cancel culture. So from calling out bad behavior to calling out anyone with an opinion and trying to cancel them, can we get back to a point again? Let's get off the overcorrection. Let's get back to a point where we're actually having conversations. Recently, Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on, and I think Dave Smith also had him on, and they caught such hell for platforming him, even though he already has a massive platform. And you know what I thought people really needed to hear is if we don't start having conversations with people we disagree with in a public square, in a public forum, how can we ever get away from this overcorrection? How can we ever find middle ground when we are only talking to people who think just like us? This is why on every episode, practically, I always say, if you disagree with me, email me. whatafusterclucklk@gmail.com. Hit me up on social media. If you disagree with anything I say, come on this podcast. I want to hear from you. It is an open invitation. We can have a conversation. My mind is open to be changed at any time if presented with the right information. But if we don't start doing that more, and I really hope that this becomes a focus because our politics has gotten so disgustingly divided. I truly worry about a civil war in this country. Now, maybe that seems completely far-fetched because we're a long way away from Gone with the Wind and the civil war that we once had in this country. And I think we're way too integrated. However, when you look at maps and you can see like where the registered voters are, people do tend to stay in their bubbles of their red counties or their blue counties or their purple areas, if you will, right? So from a political perspective, guys, it's gross. We're not going to get anywhere. We're not going to get anywhere with this constant mudslinging. We're not going to get anywhere with this demonizing of one side to the other. Now, I think the pendulum has swung way, way, way too far left. Again, maybe you disagree with me. Come on, let's talk about it. But we have swung way too far. Liberals to me, progressives to me are legit regressive, in my opinion, because you are overcorrecting almost more than anyone I know to the point where you are completely eliminating the middle ground. You are completely catering small percentages of people to try to virtue signal on stuff that like you just have no business politicizing. So cancel culture. Where am I at with that? I think go ahead, try. I mean, I'm small potatoes at this point. I don't have that many people streaming my podcast. I think I'm just closing in on 1,000 listens across all of the platforms that I'm currently posting this podcast on. And I've been podcasting for what, maybe 2 months now, maybe 2 months. And I'm just approaching that 1,000 listener mark, which is insane to me. But I think about as I grow, or even any podcast for that matter, if somebody says something on a podcast and it pisses me off, I don't stop listening to that podcast. In fact, I keep listening to it because I'm like, where is this going? And I really genuinely like hearing other people's perspectives. And if it pisses me off, I stop and I ask myself, why is this pissing me off? Is it pissing me off because maybe it's calling out something in myself that I don't like? Or is it pissing me off because it's truly offensive? So I think we need to think about that before we start running out there canceling people. And I will also say clickbait is real. So be careful what it is that you're listening to. If you see a clip that's gone viral, do your best to try to find the full interview so that you can see what's going on before, during, and after that person says that thing. All right, next up on my list, technology. So from a technophobia to a tech worship world with AI as a savior or a destroyer. So again, total overcorrection. In my opinion, social media is disgusting. There, I said it. It's disgusting. It's gross, yet we're all on it, myself included. I cannot grow my podcast without it. I am taking these supplements, self-proclaimed supplement junkie, and I found this one supplement in particular more than any other supplement I've taken that literally makes me feel better. I can feel the difference every single day from the first day that I took it. Email me about that if you have questions, and I will be happy to put you on to that stuff because it's a game changer in the supplement space. But I go on social media to try to promote that product because why? Because I want to help people and I want them to feel better. So there's a lot of us on social media using it for good. But when we really look at the damage that it's done, if somebody said to me, Lauren, we are completely abolishing and deconstructing social media because it's doing more harm than good, especially in our younger population who are quite frankly being allowed to go on these social media platforms at ages that are way too young. They are not mentally prepared for Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or Snapchat or Twitter, X for that matter. They are not prepared for any of it. Their minds are not prepared for it, and it's wreaking havoc. So again, read Abigail Schreier's book, read Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, The Coddling of the American Mind. There's several books out there right now. The statistics are undeniable. Social media is an illness, and it's not good for a young mind. So where am I at with technology on the overcorrection front? Yeah, AI is coming, you guys. It's coming. And it really does have the ability to be the thing that completely revamps the workforce. My hope is that it revamps it in such a way that we actually all do have the time to be with our families, to pursue our passions. Why am I doing this podcast? I'm doing it because I feel as though there is a space for authenticity. The more we get into this virtual world of filters and fakeness and everything else, we need to hear from real voices because pretty soon music, comedy, movies, it's all going to be done in AI, and you're going to crave that real human comedian. You're going to crave that real human voice, that real human conversation. I really hope that you do, because if you don't, we will literally walk ourselves right into the matrix, which sounds dark and grim and completely impossible, but it's not. It's not, because it's very easy to get sucked into the algorithms of these things and just become a slave to it. So body positivity, from fat shaming to fit shaming. So how any extreme can become toxic. This is a hot button for me too, because I can tell you that it does bother me when I see people on any side of the spectrum that are overdoing it. Again, everything in moderation, guys and girls. Like overcorrection is a problem. I hope as we're going through this episode, you guys are starting to see this pattern here of how just awful it's getting and how we really need to just get our heads level and get back to this middle ground. But listen, your body was not meant to carry around a ridiculous amount of excess weight, okay? And if you're somebody who thinks you're going to live to be 100 while carrying around 100 extra pounds, good luck unless you have some really good genes. So what are you doing? And at what point do we remember the gluttony is a sin thing and we just realize, again, everything in moderation? A healthy you is a better you at any age. So I'm not going to sit there and fat shame, but I am going to say that you cannot be upset if you are not the pinnacle of all things beauty or all things wellness, because there is nothing well about what's going on inside the body of a morbidly obese person. And it's for this reason that I support GLP-1s, in the sense that I think they're overprescribed. Full disclosure, they're totally overprescribed. But there are many people in this world who feel like they've tried everything, or they are really morbidly obese and they just need help and they want to get their health in a better place. And a GLP-1 can help them get there. So I am definitely a proponent of that for those people who really are struggling and who need it. A long-term solution, though, I don't know how I feel about that. I think the data is coming out and it's not looking so good for long-term use, which is interesting because there are a lot of diabetics who actually need this medication and have to take it long term. But again, as with everything else, you have to weigh the pros with the cons and the benefits with the risks. And really, that's all I can say about that. And then let's go to the opposite side of that spectrum. When you're too skinny, some of us are just genetically overweight, or we're genetically thin. But I talked about bulimia on a previous episode, and this is a body dysmorphia, you guys. This is a problem. It's a sickness. First of all, if the apocalypse happens, which, I mean, like, guys, one of these days the apocalypse is going to come. If you're too skinny, you ain't going to survive too long, because your body's going to be like, we have nothing. And you're just going to like wither away quicker. But, it's also just like a sign of good health you don't want to be like ridiculously thin, and maybe that's your natural build, and that's fine. I'm not shaming you. I'm just saying, if your goal is to lose weight to the point where you look like Skeletor, this is a problem. It's an overcorrection. And let's finish out with mental health awareness. So the stigma to overdiagnosis and identity through illness. So, we got to a point where we just started glorifying medications for anxiety and depression. And this is a problem. It's a problem because we started overprescribing these things and really dumbing down people's innate imagination and senses. I think there's definitely a time and a place. I do believe in chemical imbalances. I do believe that there's a place for pharmaceuticals when it comes to mental health. But the fact that we dole them out like candy, this is an overcorrection. This is a problem. And we are only funding the pharmaceutical industry, which, no thanks. I think we need to start pulling back the curtain there. And we're doing that little by little. People like Casey and Callie Means, people like Brigham Bueller, people like Gary Brecka, people like Peter Attia, they are pulling back the curtain on these things, which I think is amazing. So let me just close out by saying, think about all of the overcorrection and just try to put yourself in the perspective of the middle ground, the centrist position. If you are so radicalized in one way or another, you are becoming part of the problem. You are fueling the fire. You are not helping it. So here's to hoping that the pendulum starts to swing back to sanity. And here's to hoping that in the places where we need the overcorrection, we find it, but we know where the stopping point is, and we know when we've gone too far. Thank you all for listening. Every new episode drops on Monday. What a Fuster Cluck, available on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple. You can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, X, which I really am not posting on too much, but also Facebook. So come find me, email me, whatafustercluck.com. Please like this episode, share this episode, and remember to subscribe or follow the show wherever you listen to your podcast so you never miss a drop. Thanks all.